This bottle's from 1978.
Look at how gorgeous it is.
Hello and welcome to My Tiny Bottles, the project where I'm exploring my grandmother's legacy of miniature liquor bottles, one tiny bottle at a time. I'm your host, Tammy Coxon, and today I'm here in New Orleans with Abigail Gullo.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting us. Abigail found us a place to shoot and has been super wonderful. Why don't you tell fine people who you are?
Abigail Gullo. I work here in New Orleans at Loa at the International House Hotel. I've been in New Orleans pretty much since 2012. I took a little COVID break in Seattle, but I'm originally a New Yorker who just found herself in New Orleans. There's something very freeing especially when you love the culture of hospitality and cocktails and food and people and culture. I mean, there's no place else to go in America but New Orleans.
I am with you. This is, I don't know, maybe my 7th or 8th trip here. And just the very first time I came, I was like, oh, this is the city that I love, like instantly as soon as I entered it. And at the time I was teaching cocktail classes. And as soon as I got here, I was like, I have to lead a cocktail tour, right? I have to get the people who trust me to curate a cocktail experience for them and then curate this city experience. Because there is no other city that has sort of cocktails and food and music and just all the things that come together so beautifully. All right. Well, I reached out to you. Actually, it was Jeff Berry who suggested that you would be a great person to taste with. And he said, she really likes rye. And I'm short on rye. I also really like rye.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. It's probably my whiskey. I mean, I'm love whiskey, period. Yeah. But rye was always my whiskey of choice, mostly because when I was 21, well, even earlier, when I was 7, I learned to make a Manhattan for my grandpa. That was his favorite cocktail. And it's what his father used to make with Oscar Chinsky. He worked at the old Waldorf Astoria Hotel.
Oh, fabulous.
So the Manhattan to him was this the element of class and beauty and elegance of a Manhattan cocktail experience. And so I always kind of grew up, I can't wait to turn 21 and I can have a Manhattan. And when I didn't like them, I was like, why don't I like this drink? It's great. It's supposed to be great. And the way I made it was great. For my grandpa, was great.
It the vermouth? Was the problem the
vermouth and the bourbon, to be quite honest. Yeah. I really think a Manhattan needs rye. And, when I, turn of the 21st century, I happen to be living in New York City with all these other cocktail nerds who are going crazy about finding rye. Little did they know, all throughout the 90s, I was taking vacations to New Orleans and muling rye from here. So I can make authentic Manhattans. So I can make, of course, authentic Sazeracs.
That's why it stuck around here, because of the Sazerac.
Because of the Sazerac. No,
interesting.
I actually had Jimmy Russell. Yes, the master distiller from Wild Turkey.
We're going to get to Jimmy.
He told me, I was so excited to be moving to New Orleans and I was really proud of the heritage and culture here. And he told me, he's like, Abigail, I will tell you something. American rye whiskey would have gone extinct in the 1980s and 90s if it wasn't for the good people of New Orleans drinking their Sazeracs. So you're welcome, world.
Now, that said, as I said, I'm a little short on rye.
Yeah.
I have some Canadian. It's not really rye.
No.
But I brought you something that is actually pretty special. So I don't know if you're familiar with this. This is Wild Turkey Liqueur. This was bottle number 9. And what's really interesting about this is that this was something released by Wild Turkey, and I want to say it was 1976. This bottle's from 1978.
Look at how gorgeous it is.
And this was the Wild Turkey leadership going to Jimmy Russell and saying, we need something for women.
Yes, right. By 78, the feminist revolution is well underway. By 78, even bourbon makers are coming along and going, well, maybe we should come up with something for the ladies.
They were really the first. And of course, what they wanted was something sweet, right? There's a quote from Jimmy. It's something like, something that had a good bourbon flavor to it, but sweeter.
Yeah.
So the girls like it, right?
Yeah.
And so what's really interesting about this is that this is kind of the first American spirit product that was designed with women in mind. This was designed to market to women at a time when advertising, women were allowed to make their husbands Manhattans and martinis, and you could have one as long as it didn't, disrupt your domestic duties. But women were not necessarily the audience for alcohol, and so this was really unusual. at that time period. The other thing that's interesting about it, so it is kind of like the precursor to American honey. And I would have loved to have a bottle of American honey here. Can't find a mini of that anywhere in New Orleans. So we're not going to have a comparison. But it kind of is the precursor to that, right? So it was this very early product, but it's 40% alcohol by volume.
Ooh.
At launch. And so it is more similar to something like Drambuie or Cointreau, and that is how it's advertised. There's a great advertisement that compares it to all the greatest liqueurs in the world. Now we're adding this bourbon liqueur
I love it.
to this repertoire.
I love it.
And it sticks around for a while. It gets lower and lower in proof, like everything did in the 1980s. Dark ages for sure. And then it disappears. And then it relaunches in 2006 as American honey, but not back up at that higher proof. So yeah. So that is our little piece of history we have.
Oh,
here.
I'm so excited. It is really beautiful. It's such an interesting shape to the bottle, and it's really elegant. And I love the gold in it and the classic Wild Turkey in flight on the back. That's very classic Austin Nichols. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this brand.
Yes.
I think when I saw the movie Thelma and Louise, like that kind of became my shot order was Wild Turkey and a margarita, shot of Wild Turkey. So this has, since I've been just 21 years old, it's been my shot order of choice, and I must have tried some form of this because I am having some vague memories. Even looking at it, I feel like my grandfather might have had a bottle of it.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was always like, there's a infamous picture of my grandfather with my grandmother where he's wearing a Wild Turkey hat. It was one of his favorite spirits. So I think if I did have this, even the bottle shape is a little familiar. I feel like I may have had this before.
All right, well, that would be
exciting. Not in mini form though. I would have loved it in mini form.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Let's see if it brings back any memories for you.
So your grandmother collected them not to consume.
No, so she was a collector, and lots of people in her era collected miniature bottles. And so, yeah, you weren't allowed to open them. If somebody did sneak one, it had to go out of the collection. You couldn't keep
Wow.
But she just loved to collect them. And as we were kids, you'd travel around, you'd buy
minis
wherever you're traveling, try to get the new one. And
did she like to drink?
She did. Yeah, she was. She did not like bourbon though.
No.
She was Canadian, and so she would order a whiskey sour in the U.S. and send it back because it tasted wrong because it wasn't Canadian whiskey. And my dad said, "No, you got to order a CC sour. That'll get you what you want."
CC, gotta get that Canadian club.
Canadian club.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, she just collected them. But I think she would really love this project, right? It's another way of appreciating them. She had her way, I have my way.
I love it.
And that is to open things up and share them with people.
I love it. That is another favorite friend of mine in whiskey is Drew Culverson from Willett. When he gives me a bottle, he'll often crack it because he's like, whiskey's made to be drunk and enjoyed. And I love that. And I like to do that too with people.
So that's a pretty good fill level. I don't know how far up it was supposed to be. So it might have a little evaporation, but we heard that crack. It's pretty well sealed.
Yeah, it was.
So I think that it might just be as syrupy as it is, not necessarily evaporated.
Mm-hmm.
So he said that he developed this remembering childhood cough syrup. It's the family remedy cough syrup.
The family remedy.
But it was whiskey and
this
honey.
was Jimmy Russell developed this.
Jimmy Russell did this.
Jimmy,
I
love you.
There's a great video online where he talks about it.
Really?
Yep. So you can tell it's 40% ABV, right? I mean, the nose on it definitely hits you with the alcohol.
Oh yeah.
You've dove right in here.
I did. Yeah, because I was just getting such light bourbon, but there's a little bit of honey on the nose. It's very light, though.
It's very light. The nose on this is very light. I get the alcohol, but not a lot else. A little bit floral. Doesn't smell like Wild Turkey on the nose at all.
No, I'm getting really nice spicy notes, which I also really associate with Jimmy's work at Wild Turkey.
Absolutely. And
even the bourbon products are very spicy to me.
So I was lucky enough to taste a bottle of Wild Turkey 101 from about this same time period with Noah Rothbaum.
There's really nice cinnamon.
All right, I'm going in. Again, that's a full strength spirit, like 40%.
but it does have this little bit of viscosity to it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's light.
It's
It's not overly sweet.
no,
It's beautiful.
it is really tasty.
I really like this.
But it's kind of interesting because
Oh, there's some citrus notes to it too.
Mhm.
I'm getting a little lemon peel with like a little bit of bitterness from the pith.
yeah, because they don't say bourbon. If you had handed me this and said this is a liqueur, I would not have said this is a bourbon liqueur.
Bourbon liqueur, because it's got really nice, it's not just straight honey. It's got like spiced honey.
I hear what you say about that cinnamon. There's definitely this warm spice bit.
Mhm.
And I don't know what the recipe was. Like, are there spices in here? Probably.
Probably, maybe.
You know, if they were trying to compete with something like Drambuie or Benedictine,
Yeah.
those herbal liqueurs.
I could easily use this in a Vieux Carré instead of Benedictine or in a La Louisiane.
Oh,
That would be really good.
well, we could go back to the bar.
We might have to go back to
We might
Loa
have to
and
go
make a
back
La
to Loa.
Louisiane. I love Jim Meehan's specs are really nice because he goes really high on the Benedictine.
Well, I was just tasting a bottle with Matt Petrick
Mhm.
of Martinique rum, and he said you should use a Martinique rum in a La Louisiane.
That would be
So we might be
delightful.
able to make ourselves a mini little vintage cocktail.
Oh my gosh.
Should we do
would be
that?
amazing. I would love that.
All right.
Okay, so we are making a de la Louisiane, a drink invented here in New Orleans at the Restaurant de la Louisiane, which is just a few blocks away from here. This is really kind of a mashup between a Vieux Carré and a Manhattan. Vieux Carré, Manhattan. There's definitely like a lot more. You got your sweet vermouth and you got your base of rye whiskey, but we're going to be doing a split base. And then you've got a whole bunch of Benedictine, but instead of Benedictine, we're going to be using this beautiful vintage Wild Turkey Liqueur. So usually there's there's just a bar spoon of this in a Vieux Carré. We're putting a full 3/4 ounce in here. And so this is going to be really flavorful because of the extra sweetness from this, a tad sweeter, I think, than Benedictine. And because of the extra sweetness of the rum, I chose to use the Puntamess for our sweet vermouth because it's already got some bitters in it. It's going to balance it nicely. And that's just enough. And then we're going to, let's find a nice, I'm going to get my favorite rye to go in there to use. We're keeping it local. Exclave local rye whiskey here. Beautiful, nice, bright, peppery, spicy notes. I think it's going to play so well with all the ingredients in here. So essentially what we've made is kind of an equal parts cocktail. It's very, very delicious. Now, it usually gets a little bitters. I think there's Pichots. So we're going to do a couple dashes of Pichots in there. I'm not going to add any more bitters because there's already some bitters in the Puntamess. And we're just going to give this a little stir and see how it comes out. Vieux Carré is traditionally served on the rocks. I prefer it up. So that's why I kind of like the de la Louisiane even better as a cocktail because I like to drink it up like I drink my Manhattans. So, is there absinthe in this one too? Yeah, we'll rinse the glass with a little. Get our absinthe, get a little spray. Oh yes, this is vintage. This is a Diane from 1965. Vintage spirits require a vintage glassware. You should know that. Everyone should know that, right? Look at how beautiful that is. And then we'll garnish it with a orange peel, I think. This would be with the rum would be the good go. Woo! So, a Creole, Caribbean term meaning someone who was born here but is descended from European stock. This is a Creole de la Louisiane. All these American and European and Caribbean ingredients. Enjoy. Cheers.
Well, Where can people find you?
You can find me at Loa at the International House Hotel. 221 Camp Street is tucked away in the lobby, just past the Banksy. You can't miss us. And you can find me all over New Orleans as well.
And online?
Online, you can find me Instagram, Abigail Gullo, my name. It's Loa New Orleans is our Instagram. And yeah, you'll find me. I'm pretty active on the Instagram.
Okay. And I'll put all that in the show notes. And you can find me at My Tiny Bottles on Instagram and Facebook, at Tammy Elsie on Blue Sky. And you can head to mytinybottles.com if you want to learn more about this project and all about my grandma and her collection and all the fascinating bits of history that I have dug out of it as I've been exploring that collection. Drop a like, drop a subscribe, share this episode with your friends, and come on back and find out about some more tiny bottles. Cheers.
Cheers.